She is the gold standard, the accent machine, the woman with 21 Academy Award nominations. Meryl Streep stands in public memory as controlled, precise, almost untouchable. But the image hides a body that learned early how to brace itself. A child who trained her voice because she felt plain. A teenager who scrubbed her skin raw trying to match other girls. Before the statues and standing ovations, there were orthodontic headgear straps digging into her scalp at night and hours of vocal drills that left her throat swollen. And the price of becoming the greatest was not paid in applause. It was paid in rejection letters, in men who told her she was not attractive enough, in a partner dying young, in decades of living inside other people's trauma. What does it cost to build a self from constant evaluation? How much of a person survives when their face becomes a tool? If you respect the discipline behind the myth, leave a like as a quiet tribute. She was born Mary Louise Streep on June 22, 1949, in Summit, New Jersey. Middle class, suburban, structured. Her father, Harry William Streep Jr., worked as a pharmaceutical executive. Her mother, Mary Wilkinson Streep, was an artist and editor. The household was not chaotic. It was orderly. There was dinner at the table. There were rules. There were expectations. Her mother had once trained as an opera singer. That matters, because in that house, performance was not fantasy. It was practice. Mary Louise grew up in Bernardsville, a town with money and visible status hierarchies. Country clubs, neat lawns, girls who understood early which dresses fit the code. She was not immediately one of them. She has described herself as awkward as a child. Braces, glasses, thick hair that did not cooperate. She was not the girl boys lined up for in middle school. The social currency of adolescence is brutal and statistical. Studies on adolescent development consistently show that perceived attractiveness influences peer status, which then shapes confidence trajectories. She was aware of ranking systems long before Hollywood. Her body at that time was changing under scrutiny. Orthodontic headgear is not a metaphor. It is metal, straps, and pressure. It reshapes bone over time. It is worn at night, sometimes during the day. It pulls. It leaves marks. For a teenage girl in a status-conscious town, that is not invisible. She compensated with achievement. She trained as a soprano seriously in high school. Hours of vocal scales. Breath control. The diaphragm must expand fully. Ribs move outward. Abdominal muscles engage. Singing at that level is athletic. It demands posture discipline and lung capacity. She learned how to place sound precisely. That physical training later translated into speech control. In high school, something shifted. She shed the braces. She straightened her posture. She became a cheerleader. She dated. She was voted homecoming queen her senior year. The transformation story is often simplified into a glow-up narrative. In reality, it was incremental conditioning. She learned that presentation could be engineered. She attended Vassar College in 1967. Initially, she was not focused on acting as a career. She studied drama but considered law. At Vassar, she encountered structured theater training, voice projection, movement exercises, script analysis. It was not glamorous. It was repetitive and technical. She graduated in 1971 and enrolled at Yale School of Drama. This period matters more than any red carpet. Yale in the early 1970s was competitive and financially straining. Tuition was high. Streep worked as a waitress and typist to pay bills. She has spoken about sleeping on the floor in sparse apartments. That is not a symbolic struggle. It is literal. Thin mattress, cold floorboards, shared bathrooms. Statistically, the acting profession is one of the most unstable career paths in the United States. The Bureau of Labor Statistics consistently reports unemployment rates for actors far higher than the national average. Most trained actors never secure steady income. She was entering a field where probability was not in her favor. At Yale, she trained relentlessly. Classical theater demands stamina. Shakespearean roles require sustained vocal power over long performances without microphones. She performed in over 24 productions during her time there. That kind of volume is physical wear. Vocal cords swell with overuse. Knees strain under stage blocking. Late nights become standard. She has described that period as exhausting. 3 plays at once. Rehearsals during the day. Performances at night. Memorizing lines while commuting. There is a mechanical grind to repertory theater that does not appear in interviews. She also learned something critical. She could transform. Accents came naturally. Dialects were not surface tricks. They were built from phonetic study. Tongue placement, lip tension, airflow. That technical control gave her range. Range later became her currency. After Yale, she moved to New York City. Small apartment. Auditions. The ritual of waiting rooms. Fluorescent lighting. Folding chairs. Dozens of actors with identical headshots. She was not immediately embraced. One of the most cited early rejections came during an audition for the film King Kong in 1976. The producer, speaking in Italian to the director, reportedly said she was too ugly for the part. He assumed she would not understand. She did. She answered in Italian. Rejection in that industry is rarely private. It is delivered in rooms, in front of assistants, sometimes with laughter. The human nervous system registers that as threat. Cortisol rises. Heart rate increases. Over time, repeated exposure to evaluation changes stress responses. Some people withdraw. Some adapt. She adapted. Her early career found footing not in blockbuster films but in theater and television. She joined the Phoenix Repertory Theater. Pay was minimal. Exposure limited. But she built craft. In 1977, she appeared in the television film Holocaust. It was emotionally heavy material. Portraying trauma repeatedly affects actors physically. There is research in psychology about emotional labor and role immersion. While actors are not literally experiencing events, the body responds to simulated distress through breath changes, muscle tension, and adrenaline spikes. Long shoots compound fatigue. Around this time, her personal life intersected with professional ascent. She was in a relationship with actor John Cazale. He was older. He had already appeared in major films. In 1977, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Terminal. She nursed him while continuing to work. Hospital visits. Chemotherapy sessions. The smell of antiseptic. The visible weight loss. Cancer treatment in the 1970s was aggressive and less advanced than today. Nausea. Weakness. Hair loss. She watched it up close. But that belongs more fully in the next phase of her life story. Before that loss, before the Academy Awards, before the label greatest, there were years where she was simply one trained actor among thousands. The industry in the 1970s was not built for comfort. Women's roles were limited. Leading parts often prioritized youth and conventional beauty. She did not fit the narrow glamour mold producers preferred at the time. She leaned into character work instead. Her first feature film was Julia in 1977. Small role. Limited screen time. Then came The Deer Hunter in 1978. Again, not a dominant presence in the narrative, but enough to be noticed. The pattern was gradual accumulation, not explosion. Behind that, the physical routine was constant preparation. Script pages marked with pencil notes. Accent tapes replayed until vowels aligned. She dissected sentences for rhythm. Acting at her level was anatomical. How does a woman from Poland hold her shoulders? How does a farm wife move her hands? She studied bodies as data. People often frame talent as innate. In her case, discipline was visible. Peers from Yale have described her as relentless. She did not drift into roles. She engineered them. And yet, early on, she still felt she did not belong. Imposter syndrome is common in high-achieving individuals, particularly women in competitive industries. Research suggests that even those with objective success can experience chronic self-doubt. She has admitted to questioning whether she was truly good or simply lucky. The irony is clear in retrospect. The woman later called the best of her generation once believed she was miscast in her own life. By the late 1970s, she had secured her first Academy Award nomination for The Deer Hunter. Recognition arrived. But recognition does not erase early conditioning. The adolescent who measured herself against prettier classmates does not disappear overnight. The early realities of her life were not cinematic. They were structured, disciplined, and often uncomfortable. Metal braces reshaping teeth. Voice lessons reshaping breath. Audition rooms reshaping ego. Financial strain reshaping priorities. Her foundation was built on correction and repetition. That foundation explains the machine-like precision the public later admired. It also explains the cost. When John Cazale's condition worsened in 1978, the upward curve of her career collided with decline in a hospital room. He had lung cancer, already advanced when diagnosed. Chemotherapy then was blunt, high toxicity, limited targeted options. He lost weight rapidly. His face thinned. His energy drained in visible increments. She visited daily, sat beside the bed, watched machines measure breath. At the same time, she was cast in The Deer Hunter. Production schedules did not slow for personal grief. She moved between hospital corridors and film sets. Emotional transitions were not gentle. 1 hour, feeding a man too weak to sit up. Next hour, hitting marks under hot studio lights. Cazale died in March 1978. He was 42. She was 29. Grief at that age imprints differently. Neurologically, traumatic loss activates stress pathways that can remain sensitized for years. Sleep becomes shallow. Appetite fluctuates. The body runs on alert. She later described that period as disorienting. She had built an intimate partnership, then watched it end in less than a year. 6 months after his death, she married sculptor Don Gummer. The timeline has often been scrutinized. From the outside, it appeared abrupt. Inside, it was stabilization. She needed structure. A new apartment. A shared routine. Grief and survival often run in parallel. Professionally, momentum accelerated. In 1979, she starred in Kramer vs. Kramer. The role required controlled emotional exposure. The story centered on divorce and custody, courtroom scenes, domestic arguments, the physical choreography of conflict, raised voices, tight jaw muscles, tear ducts triggered on cue. She won her first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Success at that scale alters daily mechanics. Public scrutiny increases. Travel intensifies. Sleep cycles fragment. Press interviews repeat the same questions in different rooms. The nervous system adapts to constant exposure. Then came Sophie's choice. The role required a Polish accent, German dialogue, and sustained portrayal of Holocaust trauma. She lost weight for the part. Her body became thinner, collarbones sharper. She studied Polish phonetics extensively, recorded herself, replayed vowels repeatedly. The emotional core of the film rested on a single decision scene. A mother forced to choose which child survives. Even stage trauma requires physical preparation. Actors regulate breathing to induce tears. They summon memory. The body does not fully distinguish between imagined and recalled distress. Cortisol still releases. Heart rate still climbs. She won her second Academy Award. At 33, she had 2 Oscars. Statistically, that places an actor in rare territory. Fewer than 24 performers in Academy history have won multiple acting Oscars. The industry began labeling her the best. That label becomes weight. Throughout the 1980s, she moved through diverse roles. Silkwood, Out of Africa, Ironweed, A Cry in the Dark. Each demanded accent recalibration and physical adjustments. For Out of Africa, long shoots under harsh environmental conditions meant exposure to heat and dust. Period costumes restrict movement. Corsetry alters breathing patterns. Riding horses for extended take strains hips and lower back. She built a reputation for accent precision. But technical mastery sometimes created distance with audiences. Critics occasionally described her as too controlled, too deliberate. That critique suggests a paradox. When performance becomes seamless, it risks appearing calculated. By the late 1980s, a pattern emerged. She was respected but sometimes perceived as austere. Studios began favoring lighter, more overtly glamorous leads. Industry demographics shift in waves. In the early 1990s, she entered a period where box office returns were inconsistent. Films like Death Becomes Her and The River Wild showed range but did not solidify commercial dominance. Aging in Hollywood operates on a measurable curve. Data consistently shows that leading roles for women decline significantly after age 40, while male leads maintain frequency longer. She crossed 40 in 1989. The offers changed. Fewer romantic leads. More mothers. More authority figures. The shift is structural, not personal. Industry casting statistics demonstrate gender imbalance in midlife roles. She navigated it by adjusting genre. In 1995, she starred in The Bridges of Madison County opposite Clint Eastwood. The film centered on middle-aged desire. Physical intimacy depicted without youth filters. It was quiet, restrained. The performance was internal rather than overt. That film marked a recalibration. She could carry a story about aging, not in denial of it. Behind the camera, her personal life was expanding. She and Don Gummer had 4 children. Pregnancy alters the body in permanent ways. Abdominal muscles stretch. Pelvic structures shift. Sleep fragmentation becomes long-term during early childcare years. She worked through multiple pregnancies. Film schedules around morning sickness. Costume adjustments to accommodate physical change. Balancing motherhood and a high-intensity career required logistical precision. Nannies. Travel schedules. School calendars. Interviews compressed between domestic routines. The myth of effortless balance obscures the mechanical complexity. Emotionally, there was another layer. She had experienced profound loss early. That often intensifies protective instincts in parenting. Fear of repetition. Fear of illness. The mind anticipates worst-case scenarios even in ordinary fevers. In the early 2000s, some critics suggested her era had passed. Hollywood cycles quickly. Younger actresses dominated covers. She was in her 50s. Industry probability curves rarely favor resurgence at that stage. Then in 2006, she starred in The Devil Wears Prada. The role of Miranda Priestley was restrained. Minimal movement, controlled voice. She deliberately lowered her tone. Spoke softly. Required others to lean in. Power through economy. The film was commercially successful. It reintroduced her to younger audiences. It demonstrated that authority and age could anchor a mainstream hit. But with renewed visibility came renewed scrutiny. Interviews dissected her process. Younger actors cited her as intimidating. She became an institution rather than a peer. Institutional status can isolate. When colleagues view you as untouchable, candid collaboration shifts. You become a benchmark instead of a participant. In 2008, she starred in Mamma Mia. At 59, she performed musical numbers requiring physical stamina. Dance rehearsals. Core strength for sustained singing while moving. Recovery time increases with age. Muscles repair slower. Yet she maintained performance capacity. The film grossed heavily worldwide. It reinforced her commercial viability. In 2011, she portrayed Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady. The role required aging prosthetics. Hours in makeup chairs. Latex layers applied to skin. Adhesives that must be removed carefully to avoid irritation. She studied Thatcher's speech patterns meticulously. She won her 3rd Academy Award. 3 Oscars across 3 decades. That is endurance, not a spike. But success did not shield her from industry controversy. In 2017, during award season, she publicly criticized political leadership from the stage of the Golden Globes. The speech triggered backlash. Public figures in polarized climates become targets. Social media amplification intensifies hostility. Threats circulate faster. Security protocols adjust. Public political positioning carries risk. Some audiences disengage. Others align more strongly. The psychological toll of polarized feedback is measurable. Studies show that sustained online harassment correlates with anxiety and hypervigilance. Later that same year, revelations about systemic abuse in Hollywood surfaced. She was questioned publicly about whether she knew about certain producers' misconduct. The implication was complicity through silence. She denied knowledge. The scrutiny was sharp. Even proximity to scandal can stain reputations temporarily. Reputation management in the digital era is relentless. Statements drafted carefully. Legal teams consulted. Interviews parsed word by word. Professionally, she continued working. August. Osage County demanded abrasive family dynamics. Florence Foster Jenkins required her to sing intentionally off-key, which paradoxically demands technical control. Little Women cast her as Aunt March, embodying sharp pragmatism. Through these decades, the emotional cost accumulates quietly. Repeated immersion in intense narratives. Repeated public judgment. Repeated reinvention. And beneath it all, the simple mechanics of aging continued. Reading glasses. Longer warm-ups before physical scenes. More deliberate scheduling to conserve energy. The arc of her career is often framed as uninterrupted triumph. The reality shows fluctuations. Peaks. Plateaus. Critiques. Comebacks. The fallout was not scandal in the traditional sense. It was the sustained pressure of excellence. The expectation that each role would redefine standards. That is not lightweight to carry. She built a reputation on control. But control requires constant calibration. And constant calibration extracts energy. In her 70s, Meryl Streep no longer moves through film sets with the same physical elasticity she had at 30. The industry still calls. Scripts still arrive. But the mechanics of daily life have shifted. Aging is not abstract. It is joint stiffness in the morning. It is reading scripts with stronger lenses. It is warming up the voice longer before recording sessions. The vocal cords thin with age. The mucosal lining becomes drier. Breath support requires more conscious engagement. For someone whose instrument has always been her voice, that matters. She was born in 1949. That places her in her mid-70s now. Statistically, the average life expectancy for women in the United States hovers around the high 70s to low 80s, depending on the year and dataset. She is in the later third of that curve. That reality narrows future time, whether acknowledged publicly or not. Her schedule has slowed compared to the 1980s and 1990s. Fewer back-to-back productions. More selective commitments. In recent years, she has appeared in projects like Don't Look Up and the television series Only Murders in the Building. The roles lean into senior authority, eccentricity, wit. They do not demand the same physical transformation as Sophie or the same sustained breakdown as Joanna Kramer. On set now, energy is managed strategically. Shooting days in film and television can run 12 to 14 hours. At 70 plus, recovery from that length of focus is slower. Muscles tighten. Lower back fatigue sets in from prolonged standing. Hydration becomes intentional. Rest days between scenes are no longer optional luxuries. They are functional requirements. There are no public records of severe chronic illness. No documented strokes. No widely reported cancer diagnoses. That absence itself is significant. Many performers of her generation have faced major medical crises by this age. Longevity in high-stress professions often correlates with disciplined health habits. She has never been publicly associated with substance abuse scandals. No visible cycles of rehabilitation. That reduces long-term organ damage risk statistically. But aging still imposes baseline decline. Bone density decreases after menopause unless counteracted by training and diet. Muscle mass reduces annually without resistance work. Reaction time slows incrementally. These are biological constants, not personal failures. She has maintained an upright posture well into her 70s. That suggests ongoing physical maintenance. Possibly Pilates. Possibly yoga. Actors who depend on breath control often continue core strengthening routines to stabilize diaphragm engagement. Even casual observation of her recent public appearances shows measured gait rather than shuffle. Deliberate steps. Balanced stride. In 2023, reports surfaced that she and Don Gummer had been separated for several years while remaining legally married. Long partnerships in later life carry quiet complexity. After more than 4 decades together, separation is not a dramatic implosion. It is often a gradual divergence. Adult children. Independent routines. Different rhythms. Ending or redefining a long marriage in one's 70s introduces emotional recalibration. The human nervous system forms attachment patterns that run deep. Untangling shared habits, Morning coffee timing, shared calendars, silent understandings, requires cognitive adjustment. Even amicable distance leaves space where routine once sat. Her children are adults now, some working in creative industries. The maternal role shifts from daily management to advisory presence. Grandparenthood, if entered, adds another layer of time perception. When your children have children, mortality becomes less theoretical. Generational sequencing is visible. Professionally, she occupies elder status in Hollywood. Younger actors approach her with reverence. That reverence alters interpersonal dynamics. When colleagues treat you as living history, spontaneous vulnerability can narrow. You are observed not just as a collaborator but as an icon. Icons age publicly. Close-up cameras in high definition reveal texture. Skin thins with age. Subcutaneous fat distribution changes. Neck muscles lose elasticity. Some performers choose surgical intervention. Others accept visible aging. She appears largely unaltered by extreme cosmetic procedures. Lines remain around her eyes. The jawline has softened naturally. That choice aligns with her long-held resistance to artificial glamour. Cognitively, there is no public evidence of decline. Interviews remain sharp. Timing intact. Memory for roles and anecdotes precise. However, cognitive aging is gradual even in healthy adults. Processing speed reduces slightly per decade after midlife. Names can take longer to retrieve. Multitasking capacity narrows. These are universal patterns. For an actor, memory is currency. Scripts still require memorization. The hippocampus, responsible for memory consolidation, shrinks modestly with age in normal aging. To compensate, older performers often rely on repetition routines refined over decades. She likely leans on structured rehearsal habits built in her Yale years. The industry around her has transformed technologically. Streaming platforms dominate distribution. Social media compresses press cycles. She did not grow up with digital saturation. Adapting to promotion in the era of instant commentary requires learning new rhythms. Shorter interviews. Viral clips. Memes. In terms of awards, she remains the most nominated actor in Academy history. That statistic is now part of her fixed identity. But nominations in later life carry a different tone. They are not career launches. They are acknowledgments of endurance. Mortality is no longer theoretical. Peers from the 1970s have died. Directors she worked with early in her career are gone. Each obituary tightens the circle. The psychological effect of watching contemporaries pass is documented in gerontology research. It increases reflection. It can also increase anxiety about personal health. There is no public indication of debilitating disease. No oxygen tanks at events. No visible tremors. But private medical routines likely exist. Annual cardiology screenings, bone density scans, colonoscopies, mammograms. Preventative medicine becomes a calendar of appointments in one's 70s. Her voice, once razor-sharp in projection, has deepened slightly with age. This is physiologically expected. The vocal folds can lose elasticity, altering pitch. Yet she continues to perform with clarity. That suggests ongoing vocal exercises. Lip trills, breath expansions, controlled exhalations. Emotionally, late life often brings integration. Psychologists describe a stage of life review, where individuals evaluate coherence between earlier ambitions and present reality. She has spoken in interviews about gratitude, but also about fear of irrelevance. That fear is not unique to actors. It is common in retirement transitions across professions. The difference is visibility. When a retired accountant fades from daily headlines, it is private. When a globally recognized actress slows down, media frames it as decline. She has not fully retreated. Appearances continue. Interviews continue. Work continues. But the tempo is reduced. That reduction is not failure. It is adaptation. Physically, she likely wakes earlier than she did in midlife. Sleep architecture changes with age. More nighttime awakenings. Lighter sleep cycles. Afternoon rest becomes functional rather than indulgent. Nutrition shifts toward maintenance rather than transformation. Protein intake to preserve muscle. calcium and vitamin D for bone health. She no longer needs to prove technical mastery. That phase is complete. The current phase is sustainability. The body that once endured 3-stage productions simultaneously now prioritizes pacing. The mind that once fought for recognition now guards energy. In quiet moments, the arc is visible. From braces and headgear in suburban New Jersey to prosthetics and Oscars in global cinema. From hospital vigils with John Cazale to award stages under international lights. From young mother memorizing lines between feedings to senior actress managing joint stiffness before long shoots. The myth frames her as indestructible talent. The reality shows disciplined adaptation across decades. Every career eventually narrows. The scripts will one day stop. The ceremonies will continue without her. That is not tragedy. It is sequence. What remains measurable is endurance. Over 50 years in a volatile industry, multiple generational shifts survived. No public collapse into scandal that erased work. No documented physical implosion that halted her trajectory. She built a career on control of voice and body. Now the body sets terms. Slower mornings, selective commitments, careful energy allocation. The final stage of any life, regardless of fame, is simplification. Fewer roles, fewer obligations, more memory. She began as Mary Louise, a girl adjusting orthodontic straps at night. She stands now as Meryl Streep, a name embedded in film history. Between those two identities lies muscle memory, grief, discipline, childbirth, public scrutiny, political speech, laughter, awards, and the steady biological march forward. The public sees the statue count. The private reality is quieter. Routine medical checkups, script pages marked in pencil, reading glasses placed beside the bed. That is the present status.